Hi, I'm Rob, and in this video I'm going to take a look at both the retro shooter guns and the console system. Now, I've waited a few months to review this, which I think is actually quite important. I know some people do review things like this after a few days or just a couple of weeks, but I don't think that's really long enough. There's quite a lot to this system, and some of the things about it, the good and the bad, may only come out after prolonged play, which is why I've waited so long. And I'm glad I did, because there are good things about this system, but a few things that could use some improvement at the same time. So let's go over those things one at a time. Right, so let's have a quick look at the guns. Now, the guns themselves are a decent quality overall. This metal part here isn't on the guns normally. This is something I added myself. It's a magnetic holder for the arcade system. I'll show that a little bit later on. But this is where the very first small fault came into play, and it's to do with these little screws here. It's only something minor, but it's actually pretty important if you had a fault with your gun, which is what I had pretty much immediately. What I'd done was I attached this muzzle part to the main body, because it does come in two separate parts, so you do need to do that. Then you push this muzzle part onto the body and you use these 4 screws, there's 2 either side, to keep it in place. But I'd done that and my gun just started firing just repeatedly. It goes nuts. So obviously something wasn't quite right there, so I needed to take these out again to check that the connector was connected properly, and that was actually the issue. It wasn't quite sitting properly. I had to push it in a tiny little bit further. But the problem was, these screws are that really horrible, cheap, nasty metal, which basically they get sheared off, they get unthreaded, and they get rounded off really, really easily. So I tried to take these screws out, and it was an absolute pain because 2 of them become rounded off really easily, and it was a bit of a struggle. I got them out in the end, but a word of warning there: when you put this muzzle on, just put those screws on just enough to keep this in place. Don't do them up really tight. It's going to be an absolute pain if you have to take this muzzle off again. So just put them on, just do them up just tight enough just to keep this nicely in place. But getting back to the guns themselves and how good they are, the plastic itself is actually quite nice. It's not that horrible cheap brittle plastic. It's got quite a nice weight to it overall, but not too heavy to feel cumbersome. The buttons feel good. They're kind of spongy. There's no actual click to the buttons, which is actually, I quite like that. The only one that's got a click is this joystick button here. It's got a little click, so it's a actual button at the same time as well as a joystick, which you use for navigating around games and things like that. The trigger is fast and responsive. I like that a lot. It's got a nice recoil. It makes a physical bang inside the gun as well, which you can feel ever so slightly, which adds to the gains. And overall, yeah, really, really happy with the guns. Now a little bit about the console itself. It is very small and very light. This thing is so small you can hide it almost anywhere in your arcade system. It is really, really good like that. But it does give off a small amount of fan noise, which you may notice. One other thing people may find a bit of a distraction about this system is the amount of wires involved. When you first hook this up, the amount of wires everywhere is kind of a bit nuts. It looks like an octopus has gone absolutely wild in your house. But with a bit of ingenuity, like my arcade system here, you can actually hide those wires pretty good if you try. Now onto the pedals. The gun system comes with a couple of foot pedals at the same time. I've got them here attached to my drop-down pedal system. They are basic but functional, nothing special about them, but they do an okay job. They're made of tough plastic. Unless you jump on them from afar, they're not going to break. And they give a nice positive click as well. And again, the same as the guns, the lead length is really generous. Unless you're going to play this from the other side of the planet, you are going to be perfectly okay. So that's the guns, but there's no point in having decent quality guns if, for example, the aiming system is off. If the aiming system is no good or it's inaccurate, there's not a lot of point. But thankfully, the aiming system in this is really, really good. I absolutely love it. It's pin accurate and stays accurate, which is something I really love. You don't have to keep on recalibrating this all the time, which is nice. The system comes with 4 infrared sensors, if you buy the latest version, which go on each corner of the TV. So there's a nice long wire with each of these sensors as well, so it's compatible with pretty much any size TV. And once they're in place, you just calibrate the guns, which is super straightforward, and you are good to go. So let's take a look at a couple of games. Right, let's take a quick look at Confidential Mission first. Yeah, crack on. Playing it with the crosshairs off. I don't know about that, buddy. I'll turn the crosshairs on in just a second, just so you can see how quickly the gun moves with the crosshair. Because obviously you can't see it like this, because I've got the crosshairs off. Yeah, really good. Well, let's turn them crosshairs on so you can see what I'm talking about. There's a really good menu in each game you can access by holding down that button and that one at the same time. So I'll hold them down for a few seconds. We get this screen here. This screen has some really useful features in it. For example, you can actually save your progress in a game and load it again later to continue. The light gun crosshair setting is where you calibrate the guns, really cool. And you can turn the crosshair on or off. We'll turn this back on in a second just so we can show how quickly the gun moves in relation to the crosshair. And you can switch the screen scale between 4:3 and 16:9. It defaults at 16:9, but I don't really like that stretched widescreen look. I prefer the original look. So I prefer a slightly smaller game screen overall, but looking the way it intended, which is why I always go to 4:3. But let's go to crosshair on, just so we can show how fast the gun moves with the crosshair. Well, I've got the crosshairs on now, just to show how quickly the gun moves in relation to the crosshair on screen. And as you can see, it's absolutely spot on in time. I do prefer to play games with the crosshairs off. This is a personal preference thing. There are guns out there that have got dot sights and things like that, so it's kind of the same when you're doing that. I just feel like you're not aiming with a gun with the crosshairs on. You're kind of aiming to where the crosshair is in relation to the screen. You're not actually aiming with a gun like you would do if the crosshair was off, which I do actually prefer. So that was Confidential Mission, which plays really superbly, but a few games do have some issues. House of the Dead 2, for example, the sound goes a little bit crackly and a bit slow in places, which is a bit weird. And it does have a couple of issues with the graphics here and there as well, but nothing you don't really notice too badly when playing it. It's just me being a bit fussy. Because the thing is, these guns are compatible with PC as well, so you can actually play House of the Dead 2, for example, on the PC without those issues. Right, so House of the Dead 2, and have a listen for the sound issues which I just mentioned.
We're meeting G over there.
See how it's a bit slow?
Please be safe.
A bit crackly.
How could anyone do this?
I mean, it's not a complete deal breaker, just letting people know that it is there on a few games. And if you looked at the games list before buying this and saw things like Time Crisis, it's not the actual main version either, it's the PlayStation 1 version, which graphically is nowhere near as good as the main version, but it's still decent. Let's have a go at that. Let's pull down my drop-down pedal system and have a go of Time Crisis. Action! Action! Get him! So that was Time Crisis. Plays really well, but it was the PlayStation 1 version of the game. Other classics as well, Operation Wolf. Got the crosshairs off for this. I cannot play Operation Wolf with the crosshairs on. It's just not right. overall a really nice set of gun games on here. Some Dreamcast classics, as well as ones from the PlayStation 1 as well. Point Blank 1, 2 and 3. Again, like Time Crisis, they aren't the arcade versions. They are the PlayStation 1 versions. So again, something else to bear in mind. Some classics, Lethal Enforcers 1 and 2, love them. Some really good games on here. A nice range of other ones I hadn't seen before, which are pretty good fun at the same time. Operation Wolf 1 and 3, all good stuff. I'm going to do a list of all these games later on in a future video, so bash that like and subscribe button if you fancy seeing them. Operation Thunderbolt, Jurassic Park, Alien 3, Area 51, all really cool games. There are a couple of games missing from this which would have made it absolutely even better. Virtual Cop 1 and 2, why aren't they there? Virtual Cop 1 and 2 were absolutely amazing. May have been an emulation issue, problem getting them to run properly, or maybe the system just can't handle the Virtual Cop games, who knows. But anyway, can't have everything, and the games that are here are mostly really, really good. Now onto the console itself, and this is important because I think a lot of people out there would want to buy this as an all-in-one entertainment unit, because it's convenient to have the console with all these games built in and the light gun games at the same too, and it's plug and play, so everything is just set up and good to go. So it's important to know how good it is at playing these standard games at the same time. Now there are different versions that you can buy of the Retro Shooter package, some that include other joysticks, some that include the PS3 style controllers, which are apparently really, really bad. But if that's all you've got, that's all you've got. But bear in mind, if you've got a USB joystick, you can actually plug that into the console and use that, which is what I'm doing here. I've got these two Hori Rap 4 units here plugged into this arcade system, and it works perfectly. I can leave them in permanently and select my games. But there's a couple of important things to point out about these games at the same time. Now, this may be a slight unfair comparison, but I'm going to mention it anyway, and it's to do with the way the graphics look. Now this is obviously a cheap system overall, like what you're getting for the money I think is basically phenomenal, so don't expect the PC style crispness and sharpness you'll get on most of the games when playing the equivalents on PC through MAME, for example, because you know when you play them games and they've got that smoothing effect on, you can turn smoothing on this, but it's almost like there's a smoothing effect going on pretty much all the time. It's a small amount. It's not distracting, but I did notice it straight away that the games just simply aren't as sharp as their PC main equivalents. But we are getting an awful lot for our money here in this system, so it's a small point, but I thought I'd mention it at the same time. And similarly to the light gun side of things, a couple of the games are a bit hit and miss on strange sort of sounds and effects on sound and the graphics. Take 1942. I'll turn this on, start this up. 1942, really old game, really basic game. You'd think it'd run absolutely perfectly on this system, but for some strange reason, it's got a weird slowness of sound thing, a bit like that House of the Dead 2 one. I'll show you what I mean when it fires up. Annoying cough. Right, have a listen to the sound. If you've played this before, you'll know it sounds a bit too slow, it's a bit weird. I'll crash on purpose just to see what I mean about the music. Listen. It's too slow and it's got a slight crackly kind of effect to it. Really weird. But anyway, I'm not purposely picking holes in things like that, but I am pointing out some of the games, you know, the fact that not all the games are perfect. Some have slight sound issues, some have slight graphic issues, but like I say, for the money, I still think it's absolutely outrageous value for money. So let's take a look at something else. See, what I find weird about that was a really basic game. Let's take something similar, but a much more modern version, like 1944 The Loopmaster. This plays absolutely spot on. It's 20 times more graphically intensive than it is than, say, 1942, but it plays absolutely superb and sounds right as well. It's just bizarre. Maybe it's like sometimes the older the game, the harder the emulation. I don't know. But anyway, love this game. As you can see, plenty going on, and it plays absolutely perfect. So I'm not sure why you get some of those sound issues more than graphical issues in some of the games. Just mentioning it there just for the people that may be concerned by such things. So similar to the light gun games, you can pull up a menu where you can change various things. You can add it to your favourite games list. You can save your progress and continue later. You've got console config, gamepad config. You can change the game screen mode between 4:3 and 16:9. Again, I prefer all the games in the original 4:3. So that's a pretty nice touch as well. Now, one of the best things about this system, and I know it sounds like a really simple thing, but it actually makes it so easy to use, it is fantastic, is this really nice menu system we can pull up, and you can change it between a huge amount of things. That makes your best games, or your favourite games, so easy to find. You've got a simple A to Z search. You can search by 3D games, games that only involve 3 to 4 players, light gun games only, fighting games, action, shooting, sport, puzzle, and so on. Really, really cool. But the thing I love about it the most is actually the quick search. Let's just go down to the search thing there. If you press a button, say we're looking for a game, what are we going to try and find? Let's say we want to have a game of golf. Good old golf, that's a classic. You can type in that, Geo, and it's probably already come up. Look, yeah, it has there. And all the different versions of golf have now come up. So we've got a golf program, golf again, and you can pick whichever one you want and press that, and you're straight away in there playing golf. Which reminds me, one of my classics is missing. Berserk hasn't got the main version of Berserk on here, which I absolutely love. One of my favourite old arcade games. Absolutely love it.
Long live Thor.
So bad it's good. Let me just have a quick game of golf.
Prepare yourself for the light.
Oh, it's another thing it does. Sometimes, if you turn scan lines on, it will do the scan lines perfectly. Another time, just randomly, I'm not sure if it's to do with the resolution settings, but it will do like these too fat scan lines, like they're huge, like way too big. It does it on this game, it does it on Air Gallet. That's only a couple I've noticed it on. And I've only tried maybe 50 games on here overall. So that's another thing which it does tend to do now and again, is just make those overly fat scan lines. Not sure why it does that, but let's show you what I mean on Air Gallet. You saw it in previous games, it played them perfectly well. But let's find Air Gallet using this awesome search system. Absolutely love it. Makes it really, really cool and easy to find your games. Air Gallet. So you saw on the 1944 game that actually ran completely perfectly well. Looks great. Didn't have the overly fat scan lines, but for some reason this spoils this game on this for me, because I've either got to turn scan lines off, which I'd rather not do because I like that sort of authentic old look. But this plays with these just too fat scan lines, and it's a little bit annoying.
Air Garrett blows your socks.
And again, I hope you can see it on the video, but there's vertical stripes down across the screen, really fat. What the heck? Exactly. That's what I said when I first saw it. And I love this game as well. But yeah, it really spoils the look. I'm not sure if this sort of thing that can be fixed in a future update, hopefully. Yeah, just looks absolutely horrible, and that is one game. If I play it now, I tend to go to the PC to play that, just because of that issue, because I don't want to be forced to turn scan lines off when I prefer them on. It's worth noting as well that in the games list there are some pretty interesting and fun variations of well-known games, like Streets of Rage 2 and 3, for example, have some really, really fun versions. Same as Street Fighter, some really cool stuff in here. Absolutely mad, but a lot of fun at the same time. So there it is, there's my first look at Pandora's Box Retro Shooter. Absolutely love this system overall. The guns are really, really good quality, and the console is a nice little addition as well, with some really good games on there. And the plug and playness of it all is what really makes it for me. Absolutely love that. I mean, sure, some of the games are a bit hit and miss on the quality, like that sound issue which plagues a few of the games. Could be fixed in software updates, who knows? But overall, absolutely love this system and completely recommend it to anybody that's into light gun games. And it's even good just as a standalone, very straightforward plug and play arcade system. So absolutely love it, really pleased with mine, glad I got it, wouldn't be without it, and recommend it to all. So there it is, there's the video. If you enjoyed it, it'd be really cool if you bash that like and subscribe button. I've got much more retro shooter stuff coming in the future as well. So thanks for watching, and bye for now.